Hey, welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the talks and stick around for more at the end.
Well, we're in the book of 1 Thessalonians, and 1 Thessalonians is a letter that Paul wrote to a community that he had visited and preached the gospel to and seen a little community of believers form, but then he had to leave prematurely because of persecution, and for their safety he left. And so this letter he wrote maybe months, maybe even weeks after he left this little community of believers who are on their own for the first time. And when he writes, I don't know if you caught it as they were reading it, when he writes, he says something interesting at the beginning. He says, I need you guys to know something. I left you, and I moved through your province of Macedonia, the next province of Achaia, and I moved on, and I got to tell y'all something. Everywhere I've gone, your name has been mentioned. He's like, Thessalonians, I just got to let you know, you are blowing up. He said, everybody's talking about you. He said, everywhere I go, people are saying your name. You guys are the middle of it. He says, it has sounded forth like a trumpet. And he says, so people know your name, not just in your province, not just in the next one. They know your name, he says, everywhere. And he even says in verse 8, your faith in God has gone forth everywhere, so that we need not say anything, for they themselves report concerning the kind of reception we had among you. He said, I left and I would show up in a town. He said, and people were coming up to me and going, oh my gosh, dude, you're not going to believe what's going on in Thessalonica. You preached there, and they believed, and it's insane. And he's like, I know, I was there. And they're like, no, you don't even get it. It's unbelievable. And he's like, I was there. Where are you telling me this? What is going on? And he said, everywhere I go, I don't even need to tell them what's happening because people are telling me, hey, something's going on there, and it's blowing up. It's lit up all the boards. People are buzzing about you. They're going crazy about it. And you go, why? What happened in Thessalonica that has everybody talking? Why this interest all across their region? Well, you got to know, first off, people don't gossip, buzz, get excited about things they're not interested in. People talk about things they value, you know? We all know this. They're not standing around in the hallways in high school talking about quantum physics or who's up in the polls, right? They don't care. They're standing around talking about who's dating who's fighting who was dating that's now fighting, who was fighting that's now dating, and the whole circle. You talk about what's interesting to you. And so something was going on in Thessalonica that had the whole region buzzed, that had the whole region blowing up. They're like, we can't even believe what's happening there. And you go, what is it? What was going on in Thessalonica that had them so interested? And I got to tell you something. It's something I'm praying God will do among us tonight. And he says, they report to us concerning the kind of reception we had among you, how you turned to God from idols. He said, what's going on there that's got everybody talking is that you switched affiliations. And you go, why is that so huge? I've never really understood the idol thing. Personally, for me, I never really got why people were so big on idols in the Old Testament. It's really in New Testament. It's really jumped on me now. What's going on with this idol thing? Why was that such a big deal that everyone was talking about it? Well, the first thing you need to know is this. Idols, it wasn't just about a little stone statue. It wasn't about a piece of wood that they would come and burn incense to. It wasn't just about a little statue of something. Your idols were something you would structure your life around. Your society was built around. Your personal life and the life of your culture was built around your idols. So back then, the idols you worshiped and your city worshiped, that had political ramifications, that had social, financial, physical ramifications. It changed everything. And he says, the reason why people are so freaked out about what God's doing among you is because you guys switched affiliations. You changed from idols to God, and it changed everything. See, we in the States, we compartmentalize. Somewhere around 30 to 40% of people in the United States would say they're born-again Christians. They check it off on surveys. But the reality is you look at their life, it looks no different from the culture because we compartmentalize. So we say, yeah, I've become a Christian, and it's just kind of like I switched out this little box in my life. Oh yeah, like I just turned it. There was this God, and now it's this God. But every other little box in my life is unchanged. It's like just redecorating one room in the house, right? Oh yeah, this is now the Jesus room. Do you like it? I love it too. Okay, yeah, let's go in here for some snacks. And we just move on. But it wasn't like that back then. When they moved from idols to God, that changed everything. And you see, when Paul preached in Ephesus, when they moved from idols to Jesus in Ephesus, it changed their whole economy, and there was a riot. In Thessalonica, he said, you received the word in much affliction. Their decision to switch camps totally changed their social standing in the community, totally changed their social life forever. And you go, why? Why were the implications so huge? Why is this a big deal? Well, in the rest of the verse, he gives us verbs that describe what their relationship with God is now like, and it shows you what their relationship with God was like and what their relationship with idols used to be like. And watch the verbs. He says, they report concerning the kind of reception we had among you, how you turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God, to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who delivers us from the wrath to come. And he says, you're doing that with God now. You used to do it with idols. You used to serve them. You used to obey them. You used to do what they required. And they had an ownership over your time, your energy, and your money. You served them. And you waited on them. You looked to them to provide for you. You waited upon them to give to you, to care for you. And you looked at them as a deliverer. You looked at them to rescue you from whatever it was you thought you were suffering from. You went to a God because you thought it would be a solution to what you felt was your deepest need. That's why they would go to gods. And so you see, idols to them weren't just about a piece of wood. It wasn't just about a statue. They didn't just walk up and go, that is a gorgeous statue. You will now be my Lord. All right? That wasn't it for them. Statues were just a manifestation of the deepest need in their heart. And so they would say, man, I need deliverance. I need rescue. I need life. And they would say, what is rescue to me? What is life? What do I need? And they'd say, I need beauty. I want to look attractive. I want to be noticed. I want beauty. And so they would move to the god of beauty, Aphrodite. And they would move into her circles. They would be surrounded by her people. They would follow her rules. They would sacrifice to her so they could get what they felt was their deepest need, to be attractive. You want victory in war? You'd go to Ares. And you go to him because I want victory in battle. And so you would move with his circles, reflect his priorities, sacrifice to him to ensure blessing on you and to keep you from calamity. You want success economically? You go to Artemis. You want to be the life of the party? They even had a god for that, Bacchus. You want to be good at throwing parties? You go to him. And so they would go to different gods, and all the gods were what a manifestation of what they felt their needs were, that I'm in a place that I'm incomplete, but if I could have that, if you'd give me this, I'd be delivered. You'd give me life, you'd give me rescue, and that's why they would move to the gods they would move to. So it's interesting, as you see Paul preach all throughout that world, anytime he moved into a city, he always contrasted Jesus with your idols. And it wasn't because he was scared of idols. He even told the Colossians, hey, your idols, they're worthless things. It's just a little piece of wood. But he did it because he knew something about the human heart. He knew our human condition. It was the same with them, and it's the same with us. The condition is this, that we were made to worship God. The living and true God was made to be that which we move towards, to serve and to deliver us. We were made to worship him. What is the greatest commandment? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. That's it. To love him, to connect with him. That's what my heart is made for. But Paul told the Romans, he said, our problem is that we neither glorified him nor gave thanks, and our foolish hearts went dark. We rejected God, and then Romans says God in his wrath, God was angry, we rejected him, and in his wrath, it says he gave us over to the desires of our hearts. Which sounds weird. He gave us the desires of our hearts as a punishment? He said, that doesn't sound right. You disobey me? Well, go to your room and play with your Xbox. Yeah, all right. I mean, that doesn't sound like punishment, right? It's probably not what your parents did. And you go, God punished them by giving them the desires of their heart? How does that even work? Well, as you read through Romans, it says, because God knows how we work. It says, and they worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator. See, God understood we are made to worship something. We are made for our lives to orbit around something bigger than us that gives us our gravity. And when you pull God out of the center, the human heart will put something else in its place. We will move towards something that we orbit around, that shapes our priorities, that we look at that says, you will fill what I need. So what's an idol? All an idol is whatever we put in our life that we would look to give us what only God can give us. An idol is something that you would set up that say, this is essential to me. This is something I need to get meaning, to get acceptance, to get purpose. This is something that if I lose it, I feel like I've lost me, that if this isn't in my life, I don't want to go on living. An idol is something that we say, if God's not in the center of my life, this is what's in my life that gives me meaning, value, acceptance. This is what I say in my heart of hearts. If I have this, then I am secure, significant, and valued. And when you realize that's what an idol is, then an idol can be anything. So God said in the Old Testament, the prophets told his people, hey, when you made a treaty with Egypt and Assyria, you're practicing idolatry. They said, we're not bowing down to statues. And he says, no, it's not about bowing down to statues. You made a political agreement to them because you were scared God wouldn't protect you from other countries. And so you didn't think God could protect you, so you looked to Egypt to protect you. You took out God and put in Egypt. That's idolatry. So Jesus said it. He would say, you can't serve God and money. And you go, I don't understand that. Like we worship God, we worship money, we serve God, serve money. How does that relate? Well, you don't serve money by meeting money's needs. You don't come to money and go, can I get you anything? You doing okay? All right, I'm going to go. Ben, Franklin, you guys doing okay? You don't serve money by meeting its needs. How do you serve money? You come to money and you position your life in a way to get value from it. That you position your priorities, that you say, I'm going to schedule my life so I can get the most of you in my life. I'm going to follow your rules, do what you tell me to accumulate and not lose. I'm going to obey your rules. I'm going to be surrounded by your people. Why? Because I think money will meet my need. And if I can have it, it gives me significance and value, and it gives me what I want. And that's why Jesus said, hey, you can't serve God and money. And he says, yeah, money can be an idol. You'll come to it and you'll treat it like God. And people do that now. That's not just a New Testament problem. And there are many people who will sacrifice, will serve, who will wait on, who see it as a deliverer if I just had more money. And I'll tell you, and you know this, there's a lot of people in our culture, and you're being called to it too, to be a businessman or businesswoman who will sacrifice their child on the altar of money. It happens in America all the time. And we may dress it up in cuter ways, but we have an idol. We have an idol. Paul will say greed is idolatry. He says you'll take anything. He says if you're greedy, if you want something, you say, I just need more of that, I want that. He says greed is idolatry. It's looking at something and saying, you have what I need. If I get you, I'll feel complete. And so we can make an idol about anything, and you need to know this. Paul says, hey, we all have idols. Christianity is a movement away from them, but all of us, our hearts are worship factories. We'll worship something, and so we create idols. If God's not in the center, something is, and the best knowledge you can have tonight is knowing what is it for me. So beauty is for some of us. We worship beauty. We don't go to the temple of Aphrodite, but we do kinda. We'll go and we'll spend thousands of dollars on cosmetics and gym memberships, and we'll work out. We'll position our lives to lose weight or to gain mass. I'm going to drink this and not eat that. I'm going to do all this stuff to shape my body. I'll feel terrible if it's not where I want it to be. I'll feel jealous if your body looks better than mine. I'll feel despair. I'll feel elation if someone checks me out. And we build our whole lives around beauty. We don't call her Aphrodite anymore, but we're still worshiping in her temple. Anything you serve and you wait on and you look to deliver you, it can be an idol. Some of you, social clubs that you're in is your idol. You look and you go, I need to get in that group. And then if I get in that group, I need to lead that group. Or there's a certain constituency in that group that I need them to know my name, right? And some of you, that's all A&M's about. Someone's like, you're going to go to class? And you're like, I'm going to class. All right, all right. Do you buy your books? I don't know. All right, don't bother me. I'm going to rule you, social group. I'm going to put your t-shirt on, and they will know my name, right? Some of you, that's your idol. That's what you look to. If I could get that, I'd be complete. Some of you, it's your grades. Some of you, you just want to be able to write on your resume, 4.0 son. You live for that. That's all you care about. Some of you, it's dating relationships. It's interesting, Ernest Becker won a Pulitzer Prize for his book on the denial of death, and he was talking about what have secular people done when they've lost belief in God. And he's saying, this guy, a Pulitzer Prize for this book, says, when we reject God, something must take his place. And this is what he says. One of the first things it has is what he calls apocalyptic romance. Speaking of the modern person, he says, he still needed to feel heroic, to know that his life mattered in the scheme of things. He still had to merge with something higher, a self-absorbed meaning in which he could trust and feel gratitude. If it no longer was God, how could he do this? One of the first ways that occurred to him was the romantic solution. The love partner becomes the divine ideal within which to fulfill one's life. What is it that we want when we elevate the love partner to the position of God? We want redemption, nothing less. And if you don't believe me, just look at the stories of our culture. I mean, just look at the stories of your childhood. What's Cinderella? I need that man to come get me. What's Snow White? I'm surrounded by these little dudes and they're cool, but I need a big dude to come get me, right? And guys, we have it too. We got the Princess and the Frog, Beauty and the Beast. What's that? You are ugly. You are incomplete. You are broken and malfunctioning until a gorgeous woman tells you you're okay. And some of you, that's all you're looking for. You're looking for that beauty to love you because she is what will deliver you from the hell you're in. And she's an idol. She's an idol. Some of you, it's sex. Some of you, it's money. Nietzsche said this. He thought God was going to die, and so he was answering the question, with God dead, what will be the God of Western culture? And he said, it's not sex. He said, it was this, money. He says, what induces one man to use false weights, another to set his house on fire after having insured it for more than its value, while 3/4 of our upper class indulge in legalized fraud? What gives rise to this? Is it not impatience? No, he says, it's not real want, for their existence is by no means precarious. But they are urged on day and night by a terrible impatience at seeing their wealth pile up slowly, and by an equally terrible longing and love for the heaps of gold. What once was done for the love of God is now done for the love of money, i.e., for the love of that which at present affords the highest feeling of power. And see, what's interesting is we all have idols we chase, and the reality is a lot of the idols we chase, they're really because we have some deeper idol. So we can chase money, but we do it for different reasons. Some of us, the deeper idol while we chase any of these things is we want power. I want to rule. I want control of my life. Some of you, it's acceptance. I want to be loved. Some of you, it's I want to find meaning. So you'll have people that chase money, and they'll chase money because they want power. They won't spend it. They don't want to lose it. They just want to hoard it. And they'll wear cheap clothes and drive cheap cars and have a huge bank account. Why? Because accumulating money just makes me powerful. And you'll be Ebenezer Scrooge. And then on the other side, you'll have people who money is their idol, and they're gathering it not to hoard it, they're gathering it because it buys them what they want, acceptance, and so you'll be Paris Hilton. And you'll use every bit of that money to make you look awesome so that we'll notice you. And some of you use sex for power. And you use it because if you feel like you have power over somebody, you feel important. Some of you use it for acceptance. You want to be loved, and you'll trade your body to get it. We all have idols. Out front and deep ones, and we need to know what they are. Some of you, it's partying. It's not about the beer. Is it really about the beer? It's not about the beer. There's probably a small percentage that's like just really, at the end of the day, loves beer. You're just like, I love it. I think a much higher percentage is playing the game because they want to feel powerful, they want to feel loved, they want to feel meaningful. And so you will bow at that altar if it will promise you life. Right? And some of you, your idols are just for escape. And you'll say, hey, I try to chase this idol, and if I can't get it, if she didn't say howdy, if he won't notice me, I'll just go to this idol. And I'll binge on food, I'll binge on pornography. You do whatever you want. Some of us, it's Facebook. Every time that number climbs, our soul climbs. And if we get defriended, we're devastated, right? That is the death of our God. What is it for you? The reality is we all have it. Religion can be one. I'll quit beating this horse in a minute, but I'll just tell you, religion can be one. There's a lot of ways you can make religion an idol. For some of you, you can make religion an idol by making it truth. You're so committed not to God, but to a certain set of doctrines, that's all you care about. It's not even become about God anymore. It's just about this doctrine. And so religious experience for you is just taking your doctrinal lightsaber and beating everybody else. So you go to blog sites or you go to coffee shops and just look for conversations or you instigate them. Why? So you can be like, ha ha! And you know that you've made doctrine an idol, religion an idol, when you disrespect everybody, especially your enemies. Because you just want to win with your doctrine. It's not even about God anymore. Some of us make it ministry success. And I say some of us, because this is an idol I have to look for in my life. That we don't look for fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, the fruit of God growing up. We look for success. And we look and say, who's listening? Who's noticing? How big's the crowd? We check and see who's podcasting, who knows my name. And there's a lot of people, we get it every week, who ask us to be on this stage. And I guarantee you, I love them, and I know they're good kids, but it's that little idol whispering in their heart. It's not about something to say. They don't even know what they would say. I just want to get on that stage. Why? What would you say? I don't know. I just want to be up there because you see this as a rival. And I heard a worship leader talk about reading Isaiah 44, about how a man takes a piece of wood, uses half of it to start the fire to cook his food, and half of it he makes a god and says, "You are my Lord," and how crazy that is. And he said he was reading that and go, silly idol worshiper. And then he said he went to lead worship that night and he was holding his guitar and he realized, my guitar is an idol. He says, I'm looking at this piece of wood to deliver me from obscurity, to give me an identity, to make me feel important. And he looked down and he said, I have looked at a piece of wood and said, you are my Lord. And you can make ministry a god, an idol. And you go, what's the problem with this, Ben? Well, let me say this first. How do you even know? How do you know what your idols are? Can I give you a couple things? Tim Keller, who wrote a beautiful book, wonderful book called Counterfeit Gods on this issue, gives you 3 ways to know what your idols are. The first one he says is look at your imagination. He says your true God of your heart is what your thoughts effortlessly go to when there's nothing demanding your attention. What do you daydream about? When you have nothing else going on in your mind, what comes to mind? What do you think about? What if you picture that, you go, that would be awesome. What is it for you? I remember for my students when I was a high school minister, we used to play a game called Twice Your Age. Because you would ask kids, what do you want your life to be like? What do you want when you grow up? And a high school kid would go, I don't know. You go, okay, let's play a game. Twice your age. Yeah, how old are you? And they'd say, 15. You go, okay, now you're 30. And I'm going to ask you questions. You tell me what you're doing when you're 30. You got a job? And they'd be like, oh, yeah. You're like, what are you doing? Well, I'm making millions. And I married somebody hot who drives a Jaguar. We live in the high-rise in Dallas where we look down upon the people. And I tell you, you learn something about them. Because they start telling you what their dreams are, and you learn a lot about it. What do you dream about? What do you think about? That when you have a good dream, what's happening? Is it you telling a joke, and they all go, ha, 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 and you're like, oh, I am funny. Ha, ha, ha. Yes, you're all, because I said that, because I'm funny. You know. Is it them thinking you're important? You finish the weight and rack it, and they look, and you go, that's right, drink it in. What is it for you? Next one, he says, look at your flow of money. Your money will flow most effortlessly towards your heart's greatest love. Jesus said where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be. What do you spend money on? What do you spend money on easy, not even thinking about it? Third one is look at your uncontrollable emotions. And this was a good one, I thought. Watch when your emotions suddenly flare. Look and go, what just caused that? When you get angry, if suddenly something just makes you so mad, look and go, wait a minute. What was happening there? Is there something that I think is so important I can't live without it, and it got threatened? I remember I was with a friend once, and we were talking to this girl, and we were just visiting with her and laughing, talking, whatever, and left. And she left, and he wanted to fight me. He was furious. He was angry. And I was like, what's going on with you? And he was like, you were trying to make fun of me to get that girl to like you more than me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even make fun of you. And he was ready to throw down right in the middle of the rec center. And he was accusing me of trying to manipulate the situation to look funnier than him. And I said, bro, I don't like her. I don't know what you're talking about. And he got so angry, and I'm like, you must chill. And I left that moment, and I thought, he was projecting some things onto me. And I'm like, that wasn't my heartbeat, bro. That was yours. You are so fixated on the attention of women. When that got threatened, you went crazy. Some guys, it's a field like this. I mean, you've been in those intramural games where some guy is just so dialed up and you go, this is not about intramurals anymore. I'm not a psychologist, but there's something deeper going on in there. And I think you need to go on a journey because you are not okay. Right? And you know that guy. That, man, that was glory. The idol is that end zone. And if they can't get it, they're furious. And you go, what's going on with that? What's happening in your heart? What are the things that if you just threw the question to yourself, if I could just, what fills in the blank for you? I'd feel lovable if I could have. What fills the blank for you? If I lost this, I wouldn't want to live. What fills that blank for you? 2008, 2009, when we had a financial downturn, a lot of rich people killed themselves. CFO of Freddie Mac hung himself in his basement. Chief executive of Sheldon Good blew his brains out in his Jaguar. A lot of people, when their money was gone, they said, I don't want to live anymore. What's the thing that if I took it from you, you would say, you just took life from me? That's your idol. You follow the trail of money, time, energy, affections, passion, and you'll find your idol. Now the problem is, the blessing of Thessalonians, as Paul says, the good news is you turned from your idols to the living God. See, the problem with idols and why that was such an amazing thing is because idols, they can't fill the human heart. They can't. Alexis de Tocqueville, 1830s, went and visited America, just kind of checked us out. And he made his famous observations on America, and he said this about us, and it's still true today. He says, a strange melancholy haunts the inhabitants in the midst of their abundance. And he's trying to figure it out. Why do Americans have so much and yet are so haunted? And he says, because the incomplete joys of this world will not satisfy the human heart. And some of you know that. You know your idol's not fixing you. Some of you girls who have looked at a guy, and if you really objectively looked at it, you thought, if I could just get a guy, but just think for a minute and think about a man. Think about a dude. Do you really think he could meet all the desires of your heart? You even think he has the first clue? How? I mean, you picture the movies where guys do that. Those movies are written by girls. Think about a real guy. He's at home playing Call of Duty and doesn't have a clue what you're thinking and would have no idea how to help you with it. You think money's going to solve it for you? How many people have we seen that not do it for them? How many times we got to hear that story? You think popularity is going to do it for you? Let me read you a quote from Madonna. She says, I have an iron will, and all of my will has been to conquer some horrible feeling of inadequacy. I push past, it's a tough night for me tonight. I push past one spell of it and discover myself as a special human being. And then I get to another stage that I'm mediocre and uninteresting again and again. My drive in life is this horrible fear of being mediocre. And it's always pushing me. Because even though I've become somebody, I have to prove I'm somebody. My struggle has never ended, and it probably never will. I sound like freedom to you? I sound like the love of the game? No, she's being ravaged. But you've got Britney Spears and Lady Gaga and everyone else following in her footsteps because they think that idol will fill the human heart, and it can't. And Madonna's had decades of it, and she's empty. And I'm seeing the stars from my childhood turn their faces into grotesques because they cared so much about being beautiful that when beauty's gone, they don't have anything in life anymore. And so they will buy whatever they need to buy to change their face. Even Kenny Rogers. Look at Kenny. It's messed up. And here's the point. Our idols, they're destructive. They'll kill you. And incidentally, it can be a good thing. Money's not bad, beauty's not bad, dating's not bad, guys aren't bad, girls aren't bad, but when you make it an ultimate thing, that's when it turns bad. Romance is wonderful, but when you make romance your God, you know what happens? I must have him at all costs. You drop all boundaries. And you'll do things and compromise places, you'll give away, and you'll end up stripped and bare by your God. Money demands from you, and you'll give to it everything. And you'll sacrifice your wife and your kids, and it'll be gone. And I have a Bible with all the notes written by a man whose name was huge in our country. And his wife said at their divorce hearing, he's married to his books, let him have his books. And you can chase your idol, but idols are devastating gods. Idols are bad gods. They demand everything, and they strip you bare. And so what do? Let me close by saying this. I'll tell you what we don't do. We don't just try to cut the idol out. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest guys who ever lived, said this. Early on, he was becoming successful, early 30s. And he said this in a note to self he wrote. He said, man must have an idol And the amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol is more debasing than the worship of money. To continue much longer, overwhelmed by business cares, and with most of my thoughts wholly upon the way to make more money in the shortest time, must degrade me beyond any hope of permanent recovery. I will resign by 35. He looked and he says, money will become my idol. I can see it. I'm going to do it for 2 more years, and then I'm out. And he did it for the rest of his life. And he exploited his workers. And they would work 24-hour days, and most of them died in their 40s. And he chased money until he died. He saw it. It's an idol. He saw it was bad. It'll kill me. But when he tried to cut it out, he couldn't. And you can't either. And maybe you can cut your idol out. Maybe you can break up with him. Maybe you can stop chasing money. But you can't change the fact that the human heart is an idol factory. You'll move away that one, and this one will come launching right in. So how do we get rid of the idols? We get rid of the idols the way Romeo got rid of Rosalind. How'd Romeo get rid of Rosalind? You remember? Do you even remember Rosalind? Romeo and Juliet opens and he's pining away about Rosalind. Do you remember Benvolio comes to him? What does Benvolio say? He says, I want to take you to a party where you're going to see hotter chicks than Rosalind. It's kind of a loose translation, message version. But that's exactly what he says to him. Go read it. And what does Romeo say? He says, one fairer than my love, the all-seeing sun ne'er saw her match since first the world began. He says, the world's never seen a beauty like Rosalind. And then he went to the party, and he saw Juliet, and he snuck into her yard. And he said, but soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, which is already sick and pale with grief, for thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Rosalind, who? How do you get there? How do you replace Rosalind? You meet Juliet. How do you dislodge a beautiful thing from the human heart? You replace it with a more beautiful thing. And Paul says, you turned. You did it right. He says, you had an idol, and you saw it was death. And you turned to the God who is living and true. You came back to reality, and you saw where life is. And you saw he had a son, Jesus, who rose from the dead. That Paul would risk his life to come tell people that their idols will kill you. Jesus gave his life to rescue you from your idols because they will kill you. And he came and he gave his life for you. Your idol won't do that. Your idol just takes. He gave. He gave it all. And he died, but death isn't the end of his story, and it doesn't have to be the end of yours. And Paul says the whole world is blowing up because they know how beautiful idols are, but you did something the world can't do on its own, and it is unbelievable. You turned, and you saw the living and true God. You saw his son, Jesus, who rose from the dead, and you wait on him from heaven, the ultimate reality. And he is your deliverer. And so I want to beg you tonight, find your idol. Despair over it. But then don't try to cut it out. You turn to God and say, oh God, replace it with a more beautiful thing. And use your word, and use music, and use people who love you. Use a community like this to stir my affections for that which is living and true and will satisfy, the Lord Jesus Christ. Let me pray for us. Well, Father, I want to thank you that, Lord, you are honest about our condition. The world is filled with idols. It has been from the very beginning. It is the root of the human problem. That when we forsake God, we were made to worship. We were made to build our lives around something bigger than us that gives us meaning and comfort and value and acceptance. And what so many of us have done, God, is we have chased created things and served them rather than the Creator. And what we have found is empty. And Isaiah said, what we hold in our right hand, it's a lie. And I pray, God, that some people could even tonight just say that, repeat the words of Isaiah, what I clutch in my right hand, it's a lie. It's not true. It's not alive. Can't fix me. It can't deliver me. And God, I pray we would follow the Thessalonians and turn and see that you have sent us a solution. The true King, Jesus Christ, who loves us and gave his life for us, who has power to overcome even the deepest addiction, and who is coming for us and will deliver us. And there's hope in him. And he forgives and he is steadfast in his love. And Father, I pray tonight we could whisper to you, here's my idol. I can't beat it. God, will you stir my affections for you and replace it? And I want to invite you, as Jeff leads us in a final song, to just pray that, sing that, and ask that. Talk to God honestly about it. If you got questions, there's our care team in front of me that'd love to pray with you about that. But you deal with God and open up your heart and trust that there's no idol that's too big for him to knock over. There's no statue he can't kick over. Our God can beat death. Our God holds life in his hand. He'll take Thessalonians and bring them to life, and he'll do it to you. And by his grace, he'll take a town like College Station, and he'll make it a place that the whole world talks about. Because God is doing something special here. He's breaking idols and replacing them with the most beautiful thing.
Well, welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. My name is Jeremy, and we are at Kyle Field tonight. And that is some friends of mine. This is Donna Stewart.
Hello.
Jordan.
Hi.
Jeff Johnson.
Hello.
And Janine.
Hello.
And we are here recording this podcast right after Breakaway just finished. We're not doing it the morning after like we sometimes do, but we're on location tonight.
Mm-hmm. We are in the bowels
And it was amazing.
of the stadium. Yeah.
It was amazing.
So fun.
Unbelievable.
It was great.
Yeah.
And I guess for those of you who don't know, Donna and Jordan and Jeff Johnson led worship tonight, and they did an incredible job at leading.
Yes.
And students came ready to sing and ready to worship.
They totally did,
Absolutely.
man.
Absolutely.
It was a cool night. I mean, it just seemed like they were really engaged, and it was just beautiful. It's so fun to worship outdoors like that, you know, and have space, and I loved it.
I heard a lot of students come up afterwards and say that Breakaway is always special to them, but tonight they just felt like God did something just beyond us, you know.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I definitely felt that leading tonight. I mean, it was very apparent that God was moving in this place. So
Totally.
Especially
cool.
when the wind came through.
Oh my gosh. When the wind came
Oh,
through, I was
yeah.
like,
It was a
Jesus,
sweet
you are
moment.
here. It's amazing.
Yeah, right?
It was kind of hot tonight for those of you who didn't come out.
Yeah, it was warm. I'll be honest with you. But we did it.
Yeah,
And it was great.
The wind came, and we got a chance to close out the night just after your talk, which, if you listen to this podcast, you just heard Ben's talk. And
Yeah.
we got to sing one of Jeff's songs, Ruin Me. And just, it was a great way to kind of express ourselves to God after hearing the message that you gave on
Absolutely.
idols.
Yeah.
and I loved ending with Our God Reigns tonight.
Yeah.
Because I always love thinking about when we're at Kyle Field, just students all over the campus that are not here, that are hearing thousands of these students proclaim just Jesus over this campus. And I just loved ending on that and letting this university just hear Our God Reigns over and over, being sung over it.
Yeah.
It's what, I mean, it just was an amazing moment. So.
We talked about that a couple, I guess it's been a couple months ago now. We had a student come to us and tell us, last time we were at Kyle, he said there was one of his friends was studying in a library somewhere on campus late at night and got up and was riding away on his bike and could just hear. Yeah, I think he asked him, was like, were y'all singing the doxology or something? He was like, I could hear the doxology being sung over the university. And we're like, what was that? And we had prayed that. Like, you don't really know where does it carry, but you're right. So tonight, I mean, that was just being prayed over, sung over the whole campus, which is pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this too, because I can hear the train. Did you notice it didn't go? There were trains everywhere at the beginning.
Before, but during
It was
the whole
like,
talk, it was
No.
dead
How many
silent.
trains are going to go by during the announcements?
I mean, you
And
could
then-
hear a pin drop. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they toot that horn at night.
And it's two right now.
Which
It
is for
is
safety.
going right
I mean, safety first.
Yeah.
You know?
I also wanted to say
For the
that,
kids.
Ben, I thought you did it was just so cool. Just a great reminder during announcements of what Breakaway is, and that when we're gathering in this place, that just to understand what these thousands of college students coming together to worship, and just to remind us of what we're doing is
Yeah.
really powerful to lead into worship. So awesome.
Well, it was fun. We had a girl that led worship at I don't know if you met Susanna. She was one of the worship leaders back in the day.
Yeah, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I remember whenever I went.
Yeah,
back
oh yeah.
in the day, yeah.
And she was there, and she hadn't been in years, and she was looking around, and she just told me, she's like, do you think God is doing like a fresh thing or a new thing? Like, what's going on? And I said, yes, in the sense that it's all new students. I mean, so it's not like he wasn't moving in the past and now
Right.
is. You're like, no, it's been moving. So when she was here, it was, about 2,000 people, and God was moving powerfully. I mean, that was an answer to prayer. And I remember the first time I went as a student, just going, I'm not alone. I just felt so alone at college. I'm like, there are other people who love God and want to walk with God, and I just didn't know if that existed in the world. And now there's more, and so you're like, but I don't know why there's more. We haven't figured that out, but we just go, but God's moving, and He's just chosen to, and He's choosing to continue to with each successive generation. We go, thank you, God. It's a gift, man, total gift, and we're grateful. So we don't want to make Breakaway an idol. We don't want to look and go, oh, this is what I live for. I mean, we want to look and go, this is from the Lord, and keep our heart fixed on Him. So, but it's pretty special, man. I think we feel that, and I'm glad we feel it that way. That's the right way too.
Well, so you, Ben, were obviously bringing a message that definitely could hit kind of hard for people, like kind of in the face a little bit. And at this point, like now walking away from Kyle Field and us sitting in this little, what used to be a locker room for the football team.
Yeah.
What do you say to the college student who walked away from tonight and is like really having to wrestle with, I've got idols in my life and what next for me, and is there anything you want to say, just knowing you have tons of notes every time you go up to speak, that you would like want to say differently, or would maybe want to encourage people in a different way, or, I'd love to hear from you, just kind of your thoughts after the talk.
Well, I'll say that I had a student come up and ask me. He was like, I think the way I do school is an idol, but I don't really understand how. Like, I'm trying to figure that out. And he's like, so what do I do? I was like, well, I said, here's what I think you do. Paul told Timothy, watch your life and your doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because in doing so you'll save both yourself and your hearers. He's like, hey, you want to save your life and everyone who's influenced by you? He says, then watch, like be attentive to two things. What do you believe? Do you believe the right things about who God is and how God operates and what He's like? Like, get that straight. Like, focus your mind's attention on who God is and really. And so I said, I would do that, man. I said, honestly, I would read the Bible every day, write out your emotions all around it. I said, journal about it, just interact with God. I said, and then he said, watch your life and your doctrine. I said, watch God and think about God and ponder God, and then look at you. I said, and feel the freedom to know this is a journey and be a student of yourself. I said, just let yourself do that. I said, and I gave him the example of me. I said, when I started ministry, I was working 70, 80-hour weeks. And I went to a friend in ministry because I said, I don't have enough time to write sermons. And he asked about my schedule. And he said, your problem in scheduling, your problem is you don't trust God. And I was like, no problem with my schedule. Like, I don't have enough time to write a sermon. And I just he was like, no, your problem is you don't trust God. And I'm like, yeah, I really am not tracking with what you're talking about. And, but I had to think about it. And I'm like, why do I do that? And I was like, I'm pushing so hard because I feel like it all depends on me. Because I don't feel like God will take care of me. And so it all depends on me. And I want to feel valuable, and ministry makes me feel valuable. success in ministry makes me feel like I'm worthwhile. So I have to succeed in ministry to feel worthwhile. And so it all depends on me because I'm alone because God doesn't care. And then suddenly I'm like, whoa, there it is, man. That's the idol. But that didn't come like when I wasn't sitting at home going, why am I working 70-hour weeks? It is because of some deep soul wounds. Like I was just like, when am I going to write this sermon? Like that's what I was thinking. But it took some friends. It took journaling, took thinking. And now I look and go, there's that idol. And it's lost a lot of the power. I look and I go, nope, I have a distorted view of God. Let's fix that. Fix my mind on him. And I have a distorted view of myself, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put my affections on that. And so once I do that, then I think what I told him at the end is true. You don't look and go, I've got to cut this idol out of my heart. It's hard to do that. You replace it.
Yeah.
You go, God, you be God. You be my heart's affection. You be my leader. You be the one who cares for me. You be the one who gives me value. And you pray like that. And trust that there's a God who actually exists, who actually is in the business of doing that kind of thing. So.
Well, it makes me think of a lyric that we sang tonight of a song that both Donna and Jordan sang and wrote.
Yeah.
I was designed to radiate.
Yeah.
And just that, like, we were designed to live for God, and that just is really encouraging. And the fact that we got to sing that out in the open air on campus was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And so I hope that people walk away from tonight and even listening to this just realizing that,
And I would say, and I'll quit Billy, but I would say be gentle with yourself
Yes.
and just think about it, and you may need to despair a little, cry a little, but then look up and, like you said, see that Jesus is better, and so I give you all of me. That's what we sang, and I was designed by you to radiate, to experience your love and then let it shine out for me, and do that. So you don't have to be perfect. This isn't like a fix yourself sermon. You go and lay yourself down. And he's there. He'll meet you there. That's what's beautiful.
I think he meant us too. I think it was sweet because Jesus is actually really sweet with us. I think as soon as he got to the punchline in his sermon, right after he quoted Shakespeare, and then he said you have to replace it with a more beautiful thing. That's when the wind came, and it was just this beautiful moment that it cooled everything off, and it was a really sweet time, I thought, of worship. And everybody noticed that you couldn't not in the stands, and then it opened up for the last set whenever Jeff and Jordan came back up and sang the words, destroy the idols that have taken your place till it's you alone I live for. And I was like, God, Lord, you just totally took this night and focused on you. And you just let us just worship you in the open air and say, take all the things that are taking our time, taking our love, taking our attention, and God, we want to replace it with you because you're better. And it's just beautiful.
Well, thank you to you guys for leading and for being great worship leaders. And we are so blessed. And so if people get a chance to ever come to a breakaway, if you're, far away or right around the corner, whatever, come and experience this.
We have people from Houston.
Get over here. Just fly Greyhound, whatever you need to do.
Get here.
We want to meet you.
Jeff wants to meet you.
Well, before this gets too out of hand, we're going to wrap up, and I just want to say thanks for being with us on this podcast and for listening. And we're going to next week be in Reed Arena with our ministry fair, which is really a cool thing that we get a chance to do, which is link arms with other churches and ministries on campus and around the city. And so make sure if you're a student looking for a place to plug in, come early at 8:15. We'll have some tables set up and people will be ready to talk to you and help you. And so we can't wait to do that. So if you're around, please come. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. So see you soon.
Bye everybody.